Okay, we're live.
We're live.
We are live. All right. Can you see how many people have joined?
Wait. Just checking to make sure that it's working.
James, are we good?
Yeah, I think we're good.
Bring people in. James?
Let me just confirm. If anyone can confirm that you guys are able to see us, please type in the chat. There should be a chat. You can just type in sort of the comments area of the YouTube link. Make sure that we're all good.
Okay, I think people are seeing it.
Yeah, I think we're good.
Okay. I guess we can begin then. Welcome, DECA Ontario, to our 2017-2018 Pre-Provincials Google Hangout. Today we'll be going over competition details, tips, and general etiquette for the upcoming provincials this weekend. And before we begin, let's begin with some introductions. So, my name is Jinwoo, and I am the president for this year. Vilma?
Hi, I'm Vioma, and I'm this year's secretary.
Hi, I'm Adam Dorfman, and I'm one of your chapter development officers for this year.
Hi, I'm Perry, and I'm the other chapter development officer.
Hi guys, I'm Maria, and I'm the events coordinator this year.
Hey guys, I'm James, and I'm this year's media coordinator. Oh, Serena, you're mic'd. You're muted.
All right, there we go. So hi, I'm Serena, and I'm the branding communications officer.
Okay, I guess we'll begin this hangout with the overall agenda for our provincial competition next week. As for multiple choice exams, they will take place either tomorrow, that is Monday, February 5th, or Tuesday, February 6th. The business management and administration exams, hospitality and tourism, principals, and entrepreneurship events will take place either on Monday or Tuesday, and the time depends on what time your school decides to host it. For Thursday, there will be schools checking in. We'll have some delegation photos. But other than that, the curfew is 10:30. That is for Thursday. As for Friday, that is where most of the events will take place. The Leadership Academy will take place from 8 to 4. The individual sponsors will also be having exhibits starting from 8:30 to 5:30. And principals, individual and team oral events, as well as written event presentations will take place from 8:30 to 5. Now, 5:30, sorry. In terms of curfew, again, is 10:30. As for Saturday, the other multiple choice test, that is the marketing exam, finance cluster events, and financial literacy events will take place the morning of. And there will also be the 3 sessions for our award ceremonies taking place that day. That is our agenda.
All right, so now just a couple of reminders for provincials. So things to bring. Make sure to bring your photo ID, name badge and time card, padfolios. And for everyone who's writing exams on Saturday, so that's finance and marketing, make sure to bring a 4-function calculator, erasers, and pencils. I would suggest using wooden pencils instead of lead, but if you do choose to bring lead pencils, make sure to bring lead as well. Right, and so general penalties. So when you come for your case studies, make sure that you're not wearing any inappropriate clothing. Make sure you're in full business attire. So for girls, that means make sure your skirts are at least knee length. Make sure you have no running shoes and make sure you're wearing dress socks, so no white sports socks. Also, if you don't bring your time card or you show up late to your event, you won't be able to compete. So in terms of the award ceremony, make sure to come on stage in full business attire and make sure that there's no inappropriate language or behavior on stage. And if there's someone missing from your chapter, make sure that you send somebody else up to receive their award because we won't be giving awards after the ceremony. So this year, awards are going to work a little bit differently. So in principals, top 18 individuals in each category for role play 1 and 2 are going to be called up and will receive medals. And in terms of all other oral categories, top 15 orals will receive medals for both oral and written. So for both individual and team oral events, instead of top 10, top 12 overall will receive medals, and top 8 overall will receive plaques to attend ICDC. Now, for writtens, it's still top 10 receiving medals, and top 7 will compete at ICDC. Right, so that's it for general information.
And just before we continue on, I noticed that there's a few questions in the chat, and if we're sort of ignoring them right now, that's okay. We'll definitely get to them at the end. And some of the questions might be answered in the future. So continue to ask the questions, but don't worry if we're not answering them right at the start.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about individual oral and team oral competition etiquette. So I'm going to first talk about the oral component of the competition, and then I'm going to talk about exams. So in terms of the oral, please show up at least 30 minutes in advance of your call time listed on your time card. That call time listed on your time card is the time when your prep will start. But events a lot of the time run early, so please make sure to show up at least 30 minutes in advance. In addition, you need to bring your time card and ID to be allowed to compete. Then you also need to provide your own materials for the oral in terms of notes. So you can bring blank paper. It can be lined or just completely blank, but you're not allowed to have any printed notes when you go in. We personally recommend the padfolios as the exclusive item you're allowed to use. In addition, you're only permitted blue and black or regular pencils for notes, and all of your notes must be provided to the judge after the role play. Also, make sure to show up in the proper attire, as Vioma mentioned earlier, for your role play, or else you can lose points in terms of penalties. Now, in terms of the exam. As Jin said, some of the exams will be written tomorrow on Monday or on Tuesday, while some will be written at Provincials. Whether you're writing tomorrow or on Tuesday or at Provincials, please know that the exam is individual, even if you're in a team event, so you are not allowed to talk to each other or anyone else near you during the exam. You're not allowed to ask for clarification in terms of terminology from an exam supervisor. You must complete it absolutely exclusively. If you are writing it at Provincials, make sure to arrive at least 30 minutes in advance of your exam and be there early. You also have to have your ID and time card to be able to write your exam. And If you're writing your exam at Provincials, then you'll be writing it on a Scantron using HB pencil. So make sure you bring an HB pencil. It can be lead or a regular pencil, but you cannot use pen. And also make sure that you bubble the Scantron in carefully, or else you can have false readings for which points will be deducted. No matter whether you write it at Provincials or tomorrow on Tuesday, you do need to have a calculator. One will not be provided for you. And if you're writing on computers, you will not be allowed to use the computer calculator. You must have a calculator. If you do not bring a calculator, then you will be forced to do the calculations by hand on a piece of paper, which will take away from your time. Other than that, I think that's it in terms of etiquette.
Hey guys, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the oral presentation like strategies, as well as how to tackle a case study. So I have this short presentation for you guys. Just hold on a second. Okay, yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about DECA roleplay, how to tackle the PIs, how do you organize your time, and all that stuff. So first, the case study presentation. So before you do your case study, it's just important for us to understand how you're going to be marked for your presentations. So as you see, there's two sectors for your orals. One is the performance indicator, and the other one is the 21st century skills. So obviously, the performance indicators are like the meat of the presentation. So you really want to center your entire presentation around these questions. You really want to address these along the way in order to get the mark, because this is essentially what you're marked on. And the 21st century skills is just communication skills and creativity, just like the skills that you want to show other than just a performance indicator. You want to be creative. You want to communicate clearly with the judge. You want to address the problems, and you want to have a good impression. So these are the 21st century skill. So definitely be mindful of both categories when you're doing your case study. Next one, the note-taking organization. So this is how I would like to usually take notes for my case study. So on top, I usually write my position, the judge's position, company name, main problem, and then I lay out the indicators in like 6 boxes. So I'm organized in terms of what responses I have for each indicator, so I can go through them when I'm doing the case study. And then I have one last space for my main or creative solution, which just helps me to boost my entire presentation. Second, then it's the time management. So it's very important for us to use our time well, especially in case studies. So I have 2 timelines here, one for individual events and the other one for team events. So definitely, feel free to take pictures of these slides throughout my presentation, and if they're useful, if you think they're useful, and you can reference them along your practice. And the next one is I want to go through the 4 I's for roleplay success. So it's introduce, invert, impress, and in conclusion. So introduce, there's 5 main steps for an effective introduction. So first one's a warm handshake. So definitely you want to have a good solid handshake as you walk up to the judge, because that sets up the whole first impression. So you want to have a solid handshake. You don't want to have other inappropriate handshakes. You want to have grab their hands and have a solid handshake instead of maybe some other kinds of like princess handshake or other types of inappropriate ones. The second one is you want to ask to take a seat. So definitely do not sit down until the judge asks you to sit down. And posture is very, very important. And now I want to talk about like the rule of 3 inches. So when you sit down, try to sit in the front 3 inches of your seat. And if you sit in that position, your posture will automatically straighten, and it would just give a good impression throughout your presentation. And the fourth one is very important, enthusiasm. As you can see, I have like 10 exclamation marks. So definitely being enthusiastic is a very big factor towards success in your oral presentations. So definitely show your enthusiasm like at the beginning of your presentation. So you can just like literally mention, I'm so excited to be here today to talk to you about blah, blah, blah. So show your enthusiasm and let the judge know that you're happy to be there. And lastly, provide a roadmap. So as you know, we have the 5 performance indicators. So I think it's very important to let the judge know what you're going to talk about. So providing a roadmap is essentially providing an overview for your presentation. So you can say something like, first, I'll talk about your first performance indicator. Second, I'll talk about this. Third, I'll talk about that. So this just tells the judge that you present in the sequence of the performance indicators and helps them to follow along more easily throughout the way. Second one, invert. So invert is how to it's the performance indicator process. So I call it the DECA process. So once you get a performance indicator, you want to tackle in 4 steps. So first one is you want to define the terms. So if there's any business terms involved in your indicator, you want to define them first. Second one is to give an example. So you're going to give any example. It can be related with your case or it can be unrelated, but you want to have an example to clarify your definition. Third one is you want to connect it with your situation. So definitely just connect your indicator and how it applies to your case. And the fourth one's above and beyond. So that's the wow factor. So definitely you can incorporate some creativity or some like graphics or other more buzzwords and stuff like that in this section to help to boost your performance indicator presentation. Impress. Yeah, so these are 3 more elements to help you succeed. So I call it the bet on success. So first, you want to, at the end, close to the end of the presentation, you want to talk about budget. So budget is essentially how much will your plan cost or how much where will we spend the money on. So talking about a budget really helps you get into a role and helps the judge see that you're actually giving a realistic thoughts on like how you're going to implement your plan. So I think it's very good point booster for your presentation. Second one, effective measurements. So how will measure if your plan is working, either through customer satisfaction, return customer, online poll, etc. So that's another way to really boost the realistic aspects of your considerations. And last one, you want to have your timeline. So what are the major steps of your plan? When would they take place? So try to outline a preliminary timeline for your plan. And just to go through to let the judge know that you have considered the entire process of your plan, and to let them know that you are really focused, you're really realistic about carrying out this presentation. And lastly, just a general tip to focus on details and definitely be creative throughout the way. And lastly, just a couple mark boosters. So you want to have industry-specific knowledge. So no matter what category you're competing, I recommend you to read some industry reports. You can search them up online and they're usually free. So for example, I competed in travel and tourism last year, and I read the Deloitte travel industry report before my case study. And there's a lot of buzzwords and also like the industry trends that you can literally just directly apply in your case studies. So I recommend you guys to definitely take a look at these reports and use them in your presentations. Secondly, real life examples. You can talk about personal experience, industry news you see on the websites, on the news. So I guess it just helps accompany your presentation to become more realistic. And then visuals. Visuals is very important. If time allows, so definitely try to create a visual to help clarify your presentation, and that really helps your impression. And I think that's it. So in conclusion, so when you're concluding your presentation, there's 3 steps that you want to do. So first one, you want to tell them what you told them. So basically, you want to summarize the performance indicators once more. And this just involves repeating your 5 performance indicators. Just say, I talked about this, this, and this. And then ask the judge if he or she has any questions for you. And lastly, after you answer the questions, you can confirm the next step. You can say something like, thank you very much, Mr. Wilson. I'm going to leave this information with you, and I'll talk to you next week to confirm your decision. Thank you very much, or something of sorts. And thank you. That's it.
Okay, so hey guys, I'm going to be talking to you about a bit of written information regarding how a written event works and a bit of etiquette for today. So you guys are all aware that there is both a written and presentation element to your category, and for some of you, an exam as well. The judge won't have a copy of your report when you go in for your presentation. They will only have your executive summary. So if you would like to reference any aspects of it in your presentation, I recommend you bring your own copy, although ultimately this is optional for you to do depending on how you're going to present. So your presentation is the time where you take your ideas on paper to the next level. So this is an opportunity to expand upon and make your ideas come alive from your report. You'll receive 15 minutes to present, which includes a period for questions. So aim to be speaking anywhere from 12 to 13 minutes to give your judge ample time to ask any pressing questions they have. Make sure you do not just recite your report, as with this, you will most likely run out of time and miss out on some important information. So written language is very different from verbal language, and your presentation should give an overview of your report while highlighting the most important aspects. So in terms of some written event etiquette, make sure you're arriving at least 30 to 45 minutes before your call time to ensure you are in the right place. Events also sometimes run early, like Adam said, so make sure you are very prompt. Be sure to leave your hotel or your room with all of your visuals and technology. So a bag might be good to store everything while you are not presenting. If you have any sort of slideshow-based presentation, make sure the software has been downloaded, as there is no guarantee of internet access, and cellular access can be weak in some of these rooms as they're in lower, really high levels. So try to queue it up before you walk in so that it's ready to go as soon as your time begins. Make sure your whole group is also dressed in full business attire. Blazers are highly recommended, and shoes should be comfortable as well, especially for those of you wearing heels. If they are too high, you can find yourself moving around during the presentation, and this can be distracting for a judge. And that goes along with any extravagant hand gestures. When you're in a group dynamic, it's really important that when you're not speaking, you are very engaged in the presentation. So this can be shown through a smile or a nod, or just a brief eye contact with your partner or the judge, just to ensure that you are engaged and positive about the information that you're presenting. So if you're in a group, this is how you will be feeding off each other, and the energy and active listening will really show off to the judge. So that's basically all that I have, and then Jin will kind of expand on some more tips and information regarding writtens.
That is right. So I will be going over some general tips for writtens. Definitely have good visuals. As Maria mentioned, you can have a PowerPoint. You can have tangible items like a timeline or posters to help aid the presentation. But remember, it is to help your presentation, and most of the attendance should, again, be direct towards you speaking and the words you speak. So don't overdo it. Don't make the visuals too distracting. Don't make the PowerPoint have too many animations that would divert the attention of your judge to something else rather than listening to what you have to say. Also, I think it is a very, very good idea to have hypothetical situations or anecdotes incorporated into your presentation or the way you deliver your information, because it is the best way to have your judge relate to your presentation, understand it for what it is, and or whether that is introducing a person named Joe in the beginning and alluding back to him at the very end, or talking about customers that have experienced the service, or individuals that have benefited from your plan or whatever solution you're trying to achieve. And that is definitely, again, a way to help your judge understand it on a more relatable level. Furthermore, definitely, as Harry mentioned, for orals, is the same for writtens. Please have a great presentation style. That is, having a solid handshake in the beginning and end, asking to whether or not you can sit at the beginning. Again, showing your politeness and showing your courtesy towards the judge will show them that you are truly professional when you are delivering your presentation. And so, again, sitting straight and smiling, because nobody wants to listen to a gloomy individual talking and presenting. And also, it is a very good idea to prepare some questions. As you may know, part of the rubric, there's one section actually dedicated to your ability to answer the questions given to you on the spot. And so most of the time, or some of the time rather, questions can come from asking about your budget. Questions can be directed towards specific parts of your promotion plan or a solution in general. And so be sure to prepare some questions that you may expect to hear from the judge, and how you would answer it or who would answer it, because this is very, very important, as you don't want to be stuck there and not knowing how to answer a question and losing out on the marks in that section. And that is what I have for writtens.
Okay, so we've been talking a lot about competition lately, but what are you going to do in between your competition times? So, as you know, or as you may know, DECA usually has these DECA deals that we bring every single year, and we're bringing it back again this year. So in case you don't know, how it basically works is that you can show up to select stores, and if you show your badge, you get a deal. So that works for most of our partners for the days of provincials, except for one of our partners where you actually have to pick up a coupon. So just giving you a little bit of a glimpse of who our DECA partners are. There's Second Cup, who will give you a 10% off any drink bought with food if you show your badge or your name card. There's Jimmy the Greek, who will provide you a free drink with the purchase of a dinner. There's Blaze Pizza, who will give you 10% off. There's a Maya Express, and they have a rice and butter chicken and rice and chana masala deal. There's Crepe Delicious, who will give you 10% off. And there's a Colonel's 2-for-1 medium bag of popcorn coupon. And these coupons will be in the Vide foyer where the exhibitors are in the concourse level. So these are highly recommended to come check out some of our partners and get a deal when you're waiting for your competition or you're just finished and you want to get something to eat. So another thing that we highly recommend is to check out our sponsors. So we'll be having a lot of sponsors on the concourse level. And on top of that, we'll be having something called the scavenger hunt. And just wait, the scavenger hunt gets even better because you have a chance to actually get an all expenses paid trip to Atlanta. So how it will work is that in the Provincials program, there's a page that you can tier out. And so as you visit all the sponsor booths over the Provincials weekend, each one you talk to will give you a stamp. And if you complete the page, you will be entered into a draw to win your chapter a free voucher for ICDC. So this is a huge chance to A, meet a bunch of really cool sponsors and really cool people, but B, also get a free trip, which is pretty cool. So that's another thing that you can do. And another thing that we're doing this weekend is DECA swag. So as you know, we will be selling some very, very cute DECA merchandise where the exhibitors are on the concourse level. And these will include sweaters, t-shirts, mugs, umbrellas, calculators, and there are some brand new designs that we highly recommend you check out. And as usual, after the award ceremony, there will also be finalist t-shirts being sold. So if you want to get one of those, be sure to check us out on the concourse level.
Great, thanks, Serena. In addition to all of the great stuff that we're doing with our sponsors, there's a lot of different things that you can do, and you can find DECA Ontario on social media over Provincials. So of course, we'll be heavily using different social media platforms, including Snapchat, Facebook, Instagram. We might even make a YouTube video. For Provincials, of course, there will be a Snapchat geofilter, so make sure that you're using that and showing off to your friends the great, amazing time that you're having at DECA Provincials. Please also use the hashtags DECA Provincials and hashtag DECA Ontario. If you do, we'll take a look at your photos and we'll post the ones that we like most on our own DECA Ontario handles. Well, for Provincials, we'll also have photographers that will roam around the area and take pictures of all the competitors and the events and all of that. And we will end up posting those photos on Facebook in the upcoming weeks. So please be patient. I know we take a lot of photos over Provincials, and sometimes it can take a little bit to get them online. So be patient with that. They should be up around 1 to 2 weeks after Provincials. Another place that you can find your photos is actually through this social media platform that we're starting to use for the very first time for Provincials called Journey Lane. Now, all of the DECA members should have gotten email from deca.ca regarding Journey Lane, and it should have had a link leading to the website. And so Journey Lane is this really comprehensive social media platform where it's basically your perfect companion for DECA Provincials 2018. With it combines all of these different functionalities from other social medias into one site and one platform. So you can view all of these cool and unique features that we've never before done. So for example, if you don't know where your event is specifically within the Sheridan Center, you can go on Journey Lane and search up exactly where your event is located. You can find out where all of our DECA deals are, where all of our sponsors are located. Before the event, you can find tips and tricks and what to bring, what to dress, the dress code, what award session you are, where you sit with your school. And all of this information will be on Journey Lane. So to access Journey Lane, you can either use the link that was provided in that email that we sent to all of your Gmail or Google accounts that are linked to deca.ca. And you can find the link and sign up and register for our group there. And you can use Journey Lane either online via a web browser, or you can also download their app both on iOS and Android. Just search it up in the respective app stores. And it's a really great way to connect with other members, to get more out of Provincials and understand, and to view your photos, of course, at the end, as they will be posted on there as well.
All right, so Adam mentioned this before, but I just want to reiterate. If you are staying at the Sheraton, please do show up to your case study as early as possible. Now, of course, like 30 minutes is always great, but the elevators do often get stuck because there's so many students trying to reach their oral case study. So just make sure to try to leave as early as possible. So I'm going to be talking about the TDSB travel ban. Now, I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen different posts and petitions online about this ban, and essentially the TDSB is stopping every single TDSB student from attending ICDC and for many other organizations as well. So this Wednesday, they're going to be looking at the travel ban and deciding whether or not they're going to lift it up for TDSB students, at least for DECA. So this meeting's taking place at 4:30 p.m. at 5050 Yonge Street. Now, it would be really great if as many DECA members as we can go and attend the meeting, because the more people we have there, the more support we can show for this. So that, again, will be happening this Wednesday at 4:30 at 5050 Yonge Street. So again, thank you to everyone who's shown so much support for this. We've gotten over 1,400 signatures in under 3 weeks. So as the final push before the meeting, we do want to promote this petition again. So you'll see the links online, and if you can't find it, if you just search me up or search any of the officers up, you'll probably see it on our timelines. So please do share it and get as many people as you can to sign it. And remember, anyone is welcome to sign it. They don't have to be from the TDSB. And even for the meeting, you don't necessarily have to be from the TDSB to attend and simply show your support.
Thank you, Vilma. Now, I'd also like to promote the DECA Hub, which I know was sent out to every single member. It is finally live, and essentially it is a hub of resources for a competition, whether that is orals or writtens, and it is located in your student portal. That is on DECA.ca, where you log into your student portal. That's where you see your regional scores and provincial scores at the provincials. And so there's a tab for the hub, and that is exactly where all the resources lie. And there's a fully integrated, framework for finding whatever resources you'd like for whichever event. And so we strongly recommend using that for provincials prep this weekend.
Yeah. Yep, and I'll just talk a little bit more about the DECA Hub. So this year we have a top-down organizational structure for your user. So like when you log on, you just easily choose what cluster you're in and choose your event, and you'll be able to find your case studies and your the exams and under your event. So you'll be able to find all the case study resources as well as the exam resources for your preparation. And on top of that, we also have the Finance Simplified, which is a DECA textbook written by our DECA alumni, Bei Chen. And it's also a very good resource for you to prepare your multiple choice. There's a good business terms, business terminology, business information that you can apply to your case studies. And you can perhaps look through that and during your preparation process. So I definitely encourage you guys to use the DECA Hub to find resources for your preparations.
Okay, with that, we will end off our little spiel on provincials this weekend. Does anyone else like to add anything? We're all good? Thumbs up if we're good. Okay. All right. With that, we will begin our question and answer section. I know we've already started to answer some questions, but unfortunately we got to stop. So we can start answering the questions, or the relevant questions, that is. First from Balpreet, do we have to be wearing a blazer to go on the provincial stage if we win an award? And that is a yes, because a blazer is part of the formal attire that is required. No Limit Fishing asks, what do we all get when we go to provincials? Who was talking about the swag earlier? Yeah, Serena, would you like to answer that?
Sorry, let me find the question. Sorry, could you repeat the question? I'm trying to look at the chat and I cannot find the question.
Jin, you're muted.
Okay, sorry. I guess what you'll be getting is, as you said, a DECA Padfolio. You'll also be getting a time lanyard and a time card, which is required for you for competition. Inside the Padfolios, you'll be also getting a pencil. Did I miss anything else?
Just to add on to that, most of your chapters should have already received DECA swag by now. It might be that if you haven't received your Padfolios and you haven't received everything, it's just that your chapter hasn't handed them out. I know that my chapter will be handing out our stuff within the upcoming week, so I wouldn't panic or be too worried. For private schools that are at least 3 hours away from the Sheridan Center, they have not received their DECA swag yet. And so for those chapters, I believe you will be picking them up a day or a few days before provincials when you actually come down to the Sheridan Center. So if you're in a private school and you live really far away, then I wouldn't worry about that either, because chances are you're going to pick them up at provincials and you'll have them for competition.
Okay, next question is from Jin. What is the name of the app that you have talked about? And so that is Journey Lane. So Journey Lane. Dhruv asks, when will the answer right stop being live? Would anyone like to answer that?
So I can answer that question. So answer right, your school's going to pick a time for each cluster to write. So every cluster has to write at the same time, the entire cluster. So the answer right will stop being live for that given cluster exam when the last person, so once the first person starts, that person's given an hour. The next everyone else has to start within that hour, and then they will get an hour. So it will answer right for your particular exam will close when the last person from that hour is up, essentially. Since answer right is based on your cluster, different clusters can write at different times. So depending on what your school decided, that's what's going to happen. And after both exams are written, it'll close entirely for your school. And Tuesday.
And just to add on to that, if you're talking about answer right portal in terms of practicing for exams, it should be closed by the end of today, if not closed already, just so that competitors don't accidentally start their real exam while thinking it was just practice. Oh, and apparently the Journey Lane app is not on the iOS store yet. We were talking to the developers and they were working out a few bugs. Hopefully it is up for provincials, and we will post on our Facebook page and other social media sites as soon as it's updated.
Okay, so Ivy Deng asks, how should we allot time when taking note for the case? So as I previously talked about, the time management for the case studies, I have made a graphic. I'll just show it to you guys. Yeah, so as you can see, I have the graph. So Ivy, if you see this, you can take a picture. So for the individual case, I recommend to spend the first minute to read over the case study and take notes on PIs and note down solutions, derive them from along the way, like from 1 minute to 7 minutes, and then from 7 to 8 minutes, finalize creative solution based on information from PI. So, and 8 to 10 is create visual and go over information. So like the last 3 minutes, I would spend on the creative aspect of my presentation. So think about something creative, like a creative advertising or promotional plan, or like a visual or something. And then I go over the information. So you want to read over your PIs, and then to just go through your head about the sequence of your presentation, how and in what sequence are you going to go through the performance indicators. And for the team events, I usually spend first 5 minutes, just splitting up the PIs and then read the case between the partners. And 6 to 15, so come to a consensus with the partner regarding a major issue within the case, complete responses to PI, and then create a plan in response to the major issue. 16 to 20, create some visual aids. 21 to 28, so discuss ideas with your partner and finalize your plan. And 29 to 30, so also discuss the order of the presentation. So one thing worth mentioning is make sure you have your presentation organized, and then and make sure to have it organized and present it in sequence of the performance indicators so that the judge can easily mark your presentation.
Okay, so the next question is, any tips on how to be confident when doing your role play? So one thing I like to do before I start is I sort of try to figure out what is going to make me the most, prepared when I go in. So for example, for me, it's, talking to people before I go into my case study. That sort of makes me feel confident because, I'm sort of like warming up. But for some people, it's, trying to just like staying by themselves, just focusing. So usually having sort of like a ritual before you go into your case study can really help you sort of boost your confidence just so that you get into that sort of mindset. Now, while you're actually talking, I know that sometimes, you may not necessarily be the most confident with your content, but even though you may not be, try to show your confidence. So that would be, sitting up straight when you're talking, making eye contact and smiling. By doing this, you automatically make yourself a little bit more confident because, you're sort of like, oh, I'm presenting well, and the more confident you are, the more the judge will believe your ideas as well. In addition, if you ever feel a little bit nervous during a case study or you start stumbling, it's okay to take a second to sort of like, take a breath, gather your thoughts and come back to it. That way, at least the rest of your presentation will go a lot smoother. So I hope that helps. And if you still have any questions on that, do feel free to ask some more.
Okay, I'll answer the next question. So No Limit Fishing, first of all, has any tips for first-time provincials? First of all, congratulations for making to provincials. That's great. Hopefully you'll have a great time and an amazing time competing at provincials. I would say for your first time at provincials to just enjoy the experience and not be too intimidated by the other competitors. Provincials is a lot bigger than your regional competition, whatever region you were from. And so it can be a little bit intimidating seeing all of these students in suits preparing and studying and talking. But just try not to be nervous. Try and keep your nerves in check. And just, remember all of the things that got you past regionals and into provincials because, you deserve to be there. You qualified for provincials. And so congratulations, first of all, and just enjoy the experience and try and soak up as much DECA as you can over the few days. And then also someone asked, Tresha, hopefully I said that right, you asked about Leadership Development Academy. So the Leadership Development Academy for provincials at least is a one-day event that's for competitors or DECA members who did not qualify for provincials. It really focuses on communication and leadership skills. And there's different interactive conferences and workshops that will sort of engage that side and encourage you to think creatively. I guess the values and skills that you learn in that conference is not just going to be, applicable to DECA. It will definitely help you in your DECA case studies or DECA competition in general, but it will also be applicable in the real world when you're looking for interviews or applying for other positions. And so it's a really great experience if you're in the LDA. This year, we're actually introducing for ICDC, of course, we'll have Leadership Development Academy again, but we're also introducing this new program called LDA Leads, which is sort of this program exclusively for grade 10s and 11s. And it's for those who are interested in becoming a provincial officer. So one of us, there will be an application process, which will open actually shortly after provincials. And you'll have to apply, you'll have to do the application. And if you get selected, you'll be able to go to ICDC and participate in this specific type of Leadership Development Academy, which is typically geared towards those who are interested in becoming association officers. And with that opportunity, you're also guaranteed a spot for an interview for a provincial officer. Of course, that does not guarantee or that does not instantly mean that you become a provincial officer for the next year, but you are guaranteed an interview. So you sort of make it past the first stage. And that's really what's happening with LDA for both provincials and internationals this year.
Okay. Okay, sorry. So someone asked, sometimes the case will ask you to discuss specific things in addition to the PIs. So these specific things are often bullet point at the end. Yeah, so for some cases, you will get some specific questions or issues outlined like within the case study. And you also get a PIs on top of that. So how I would tackle this sort of case studies is to I still want to focus my case studies on the performance indicators, and then I channel the questions in my creative section. So, or I can channel the questions into one of the indicators as I'm presenting. So, say like say you got this case study, and like say the manager wants you to create a promotional plan for like elderly people, and then one of the performance indicators is like identify market segments. And then you can say, identifying market segments is very important. And then I think we need to create a specialized promotional plan for elderly people that meets their demographic, that meets their needs, and something of sorts. So I think it's definitely still central, still focus your presentation on the performance indicators and try to address these questions throughout your presentation of the indicators. And if you can't, just address them separately after you presented the indicators.
Okay, so Bill Lee asks, what are some ways that you can make a roleplay presentation stand out? So it varies between team and individual because your time for preparation varies so much. For individual, I recommend if you have time, which you won't always, because personally for me, I write very slowly, so I can't do a lot of the visuals. But if you do have time, creating visuals like graphs, or I've seen people present their role play notes in the form of slides, doing things like that can really help you stand out. Do whatever comes to your mind, and something that's creative, something that you think the judge will not have seen or seen very little of. In addition, being confident and really enthusiastic helps you stand out a lot. It's hard a lot of the time to show a lot of enthusiasm when you're so nervous, but if you can, push through, be super enthusiastic, and confirm that the judge understands what you're saying. Also, provide anecdotes, real life examples of things associated with your case, like real examples with companies and situations. That tends to really help strengthen your points. Also, as Harry said earlier, if you can refer to industry knowledge and industry reports, that can really help your presentation stand out. In terms of a team event, a big thing is making sure that you have very clear transitions between your partner and you, and ensure that they're very smooth, because having rocky transitions is what's going to make the presentation seem somewhat unprofessional, and that's where you're going to lose the judge slightly. So having solid transitions and solid road mapping that provides clear direction for your conversation in a team event is very important, especially since you're bouncing between two people and your ideas can slightly get jumbled. So it's very important you provide clear direction and a clear outline for the judge to follow you.
And I'll just add a little bit about the communication in a team event. So in the preparation phase, you want to have like 2 or 3 minutes at the end of your preparation time to communicate the entire presentation with your teammate. So let's go through the presentation and then make sure both you and your partner are clear about who is saying what. And then so that the transitions and everything is smooth throughout your presentation. And secondly, during the presentation, you can use cues for your partner to tell them that you're going to speak after I'm done. Or like tell them I'm finishing up. So you can usually like tap on their arm or like kick them or something, tap on the table or something. So use this as like a verbal, non-verbal communication, and to make sure that your partner is always on track.
Great, thank you for that. Our next question, how can we find out checkout times for the hotels, and will there be holding rooms for luggage on Saturday again from Mahima? And so all that information should be given to your advisor. If not, they will have to visit the hotel front desk, and they should have the answer to that. Our next question from Ali. What are some tips to maximize score on our exams? And so I know everyone has said this multiple times, and you probably heard this from pretty much every successful exam taker, and that is to do as much as you can. And so take notes of the questions that you did wrong. Visit the answer key, even if you got the question right. Reading those answers, reading those explanations and although you got a question right, reading the answer for that may give you ideas or information for you to answer other questions which may have similar information. Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add on to that? So yeah, obviously the best way to improve on your exams is purely by just doing more exams. There's always certain questions that we sort of like to call DECA questions, which aren't really real life applicable questions in any sense. They're sort of just random, really crazy, they don't make sense at all questions. And so that really helps when you just do more exams, right? But there are other techniques that I have used in the past and have been pretty successful. So first of all, there's actually this PDF file on DECA.org's website that actually shows the breakdown of every single exam into specific performance areas, I guess you could say. So for example, in hospitality and tourism exams, there could be around 15 operations questions, 13 marketing information management questions, and only like 2 business ethics questions. And just based on those statistics alone, you know that you should be spending most of your time studying business operations or studying marketing information management, and you shouldn't be really spending a lot of time on business law and ethics. Another thing is that depending on the level of exam, so every exam has a certain level. So it could be like a district or regional exam, it could be a state or provincial level exam, or it could be an international level exam. And depending on the level of the exam and sort of the year it was in, all of these exams typically follow the same exact format in terms of those specific instructional areas. So I think ever since 2012, all of the exams for all 3 levels always have the first few questions as business law and ethics, right? So what you could notice is that especially for the bigger areas, so for like marketing information management where there's more questions, if you notice that you have a large block of answers that are wrong in the specific section, chances are that you need to study up more in that specific area, right? Because those are all the specific answers. The database that creates these multiple choice exams for DECA does not scatter each of the different question areas, but they place them in logical order. So you're gonna do on any given exam, you'll have all of the marketing questions, then all of the business law and ethics, and all of the business operations questions all together. And so by judging sort of your areas and where you see that you're getting lots of things right and lots of things wrong maybe, you can sort of adapt your studying techniques to fit those specific areas.
Okay, our next question from Dhruv is, do you recommend using visuals to show the judge in orals, or should you keep it text and just explain to the judge? Vioma, would you like to answer that?
Sure. Right, so I would recommend using visuals, but only if it's relevant to the situation. You don't want to sort of just make a visual to make one and not really have any connection to the case. So for example, if you were in a marketing case, I would definitely recommend using some sort of visual according to the situation. So that's whether like you're having like a template of a potential Instagram page or some sort of poster. But if it's something like a finance case, if that has something to do with the budget, you could possibly make some sort of like actual budget to show sort of how you would delegate whatever costs there are. So if you're going to use visuals, just make sure you can connect them to the case, but it's not absolutely necessary. Another thing I would recommend is actually paper PowerPoints. So these aren't necessarily visuals, but they're sort of just ways to present your information a little bit more clearly to the judge. So for example, one sort of paper PowerPoint you can do is you can have one piece of paper folded for every single PI you have. So I'll just like show you an example. So this would be like your piece of paper and you'd put it standing on the table. And so on the front side, you'd have the PI or like a keyword of the PI. And at the back, you can sort of have a description. So your judge knows that you're talking about this PI and you can have the info to look at the back. Now, this makes it really clear for the judge that, you know, you've touched upon every single PI. So that would sort of be one example of a visual I would recommend no matter what the case study is.
All right, our next question from Barton. He says that sometimes the case will ask you to discuss specific things in addition to the PIs. How do you integrate these specifics with the PIs? Serena, would you like to answer that? I think your mic is muted. Adam, would you like to answer that?
Sure, Jim. So in terms of it highly depends on how you decide to structure your role play. The two biggest ways that people structure their role play is first they mainly focus on the PIs, and then they talk about the PIs and then relate them back to the case at the end. And then other people, the second biggest one, they talk about the case mostly and they relate the case to the PIs wherever they. So in any case, points, in general, you want to connect your PIs to the case as much as possible. And you want to ensure that you touch upon any bullet points in the case, because bullet points in the case are basically describing the specific circumstance that you're addressing at the moment, while the PIs are just general business concepts that you're addressing. So you really want to ensure that you're hitting both camps. So personally, what I do is I take the bullet points, and I'm in the camp where I talk about the PIs, and then I relate them to the case. So I'll talk about the specific case points throughout my PIs, and I separate it based off of PI. And then at the end, I take everything and I connect to everything that I have to the case, budget and things like that end up strengthening the case. So it depends on where you want to integrate it, but you either want to integrate it throughout your case and address these bullet points throughout your presentation, or you can package it into whichever PI it's closest to or at the end. It's up to you.
Okay, our next question is from Ivy. She says that some of the answer right exams aren't working. Is there any resource we can use to do exams in that format? And that is correct. Answer right exams are actually taken, are not open anymore. They're closed, and that's because obviously exams are tomorrow and on Tuesday. But again, as we mentioned, our DECA Hub, you can find, unfortunately, not exams in the same format as answer right, but you can indeed find the exams for you to practice. Next, from Hema, would it be unprofessional to put something like an athletic headband on the end of our written presentation if we're doing F&P and our retail stores and athletic apparel company? I guess it depends on the headband itself. If it's too extravagant, it may be unprofessional, but again, if it adds to your presentation, that would be a good idea as a visual or an additional element to help you judge visualize what you are selling. Next one from Dhruv. Is it recommended to go the full 10 minutes for the case study, including questions, or should we limit it to 9 minutes or less? Harry, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, for sure. So it really depends on your case study, and definitely it doesn't like what matters more is your presentation, like the content you present, rather than how long you go. And for the individual case oral presentations, just keep in mind that you have 10 full minutes for your presentation, and then an extra 5 minutes for your questions. So feel free to take the entire 10 minutes if you have information to fill up the time. And definitely be mindful of what you talk about rather than don't drag on for the times. And oh, sorry, yeah, so sorry, I got confused with individual and team events. So individuals, you only have 10 minutes, yes. So definitely make sure to control your time and also your content when you present. Be mindful of covering all the content, and also make sure to be concise as you're presenting. Don't purposely drag on your presentation because you just want to take up time. So be sure to cater your content well as be concise and be mindful of the time.
Yeah, just to add on to that. So for individuals, of course, you have only 10 minutes to present, including questions. So ideally, you want to finish up your conclusion and get to the question period around with 2 minutes to spare. So try and aim for around that like 8-minute sweet mark, so that you have enough time to answer those 2 questions. When answering your 2 questions, or 2 or 3, or how many the judge asks, it's really important that you're concise, that you don't ramble on, that you just stick to answering the question directly. It's okay if you take some time to think about the answer. You don't have to just blurt something out right away. What I do sometimes, if I need time to think, I always just stall by asking if the judge can repeat that question, and try and relate it back to the case and relate it back to your PIs.
Okay, our next question from Alan Liu. I have a friend that might not be able to attend the award ceremony. What would happen if he can't make it and he qualifies for ICDC? I believe it goes with having someone else go up and collecting your award for you. That individual would be able to attend the awards. Would be able to verbally commit for you. Or possibly the advisor. So just have someone there present to verbally commit for that individual. Okay, next question, an interesting question that is from No Limit Fishing. Any recommendations on activities in the area? I'm not local to Toronto. As for that question, Serena, would you like to answer?
Okay. All right, so I would highly recommend BlogTO, partly because we are featured on BlogTO, but also because they have a whole list of great things to explore in the area. So of course, there's Nathan Phillips Square right beside the hotel, so you can always skate there. There's a bunch of shops at the Eaton Center. You can just walk around and check out our DECA deals. You could also just tour around. There's a bunch of museums nearby, and there are probably some festivals or events that are happening around. And to find out more about that, I would recommend just checking out BlogTO or just doing a straight Google search of what's good and happening nearby. Oh, yes, and also note that your ability to go to these different events depends on your school. So listen to your school rules first. If you need to check in with an exec at your school, or whether or not you need to travel in groups, etc., you want to make sure that you listen to your school's rules.
All right. Next question's from Ivy. Any past mistakes you guys have made that we should avoid? James would like to answer that. I'm just give Okay, sorry about that. Vilma, would you like to say that instead?
Sure. Okay, so I have personally made a lot of past mistakes, and I would definitely say one of the most important ones to avoid is if you make a mistake in the middle of your presentation, don't ramble on. Just take a second to gather your thoughts, because essentially if you ramble on, you sort of feel like, you've messed up already and you just keep on messing up. So I'd always say stay calm and collect your thoughts. In addition, before you go into your case study, try not to think about the number of competitors you're competing against. I know that definitely got me in my very first role player regionals. I got so nervous because there's like 50 other people competing against me. So try your best not to think about that at all. Also, another thing I'd recommend is I used to cram in as much studying as I could before my case study. But I would say just, sort of know that, you did as much as you could to study. Just sort of try to calm yourself down before your case. Don't try to cram everything in before. So that would personally be some of the mistakes I've made that I would suggest you avoid.
Okay, another question from Ivy. Are there any things we should alter about our presentation depending on how we perceive our judge to be? Adam would like to answer that.
Sure. So it really depends. If you can alter it, it really depends on what the trait is relating to your judge. Like if your judge is young and is part of the millennial crowd more so, then you can definitely relate to them more on a millennial pop culture scale and tailor your materials more towards that. But generally, your presentation is structured in a way that it's usually objective to the age range. That's ideally how you want to structure it, because you can't know what your judge is going to be in advance, what their demographic is going to be. So you generally want to make it as objective and general as possible, but if you can in the moment relate it to them, it won't hurt you. But again, you're not given a lot of time from the moment that you see the judge to the moment you're presenting. So it's going to be a lot of impromptu thinking. So you can if you're able to, but it's not going to be like a lot of material. So try and make it as objective as possible.
Okay, our next question from Bill. Do you guys have any sites or resources where we can find articles that can provide us with industry trends and events that we can refer to in our role plays? Harry, would you like to answer that?
Yes, for sure. So for industry trends, like US news, business news, and all like the news website, the business section of the news websites, it would be helpful. And they usually have a search block, so you can search your particular, your specific area that you want to look for. So I can go on US news and search for, if I'm doing travel and tourism, I can search up for travel and tourism news. And other than that, I think industry report is a very important sector to read before during my preparation. So you can usually find free reports on, say, like Deloitte usually have industry report for different industries. So you just go online, search up, say, travel industry report, Deloitte, and then you can just, there's like a link to it, and you can just have it downloaded. It's free and in PDF. And also there's a lot more other industry report by other companies, and just Google like the industry report for your specific industry, and you'll be able to find tons of resources regarding that industry.
Okay, Bioma, did you say there was another question?
Okay, so Sundial Dreams asked if I could reiterate how many participants will get medals and how many will go to ICDC for principal events. So principals events is different this year. So top 18 roleplay 1, top 18 roleplay 2, and top 18 exam scores will get medals, and overall top